Alrighty, folks, welcome to the next episode of the Snowy's Camping Show. Joined as usual by myself, Ben, and my colleague Lauren. How are you today, Lauren?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm cool this morning. Got a chilly morning here in Adelaide this morning.
Yeah, very cold.
Probably complaining about temperatures that aren't anywhere near what is actually cold. A colleague of ours lives up in the hills, and it was a bit colder up there.
Well, I'm in the foothills, and every morning I have to have my car going just for a little bit before I start driving, and like the windows are heavy frost, and I don't know if you're getting that.
No, I try and park it under my sort of pergola-y thing a bit so it doesn't happen. But yeah, it has been cool. You have a pergola. Oh well, it's a frame with a like shade mesh draped over the top. It's a half finished pergola. You took the bait there, mate. You didn't need to. Well, yeah, I backed it up. So we've got an interview today. I haven't done an interview for a little while. And got an interview today with a new brand, myCOOLMAN. I'm aware now that people know what the episode's about because they've read the title before they've come in. And we've had someone come on board to talk about myCOOLMAN, which we've had previously. And then for quite a while, it wasn't part of the Snowy's range, but recently come back in and they got some new fridges too. And
don't forget to subscribe.
Don't forget. Yeah, okay. All right.
Wherever you're listening to the podcast.
Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, wherever you're listening, YouTube, via your favorite podcast app, and you can join in on the conversation on our Facebook group too, called Snowy's Camping Banter. Now, so back to the episode, myCOOLMAN. We have got on the line Charlie Graham, who is the technical sales and product specialist, and we'll let him talk a little bit to just what that means in a sec. But welcome to the show, Charlie, and thanks for joining us.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Great.
Good.
Hey, over to you for a minute. Tell us who you are, what your position is at COOLMAN and myCOOLMAN, and a little bit of your background there.
So, myCOOLMAN. So I'm the technical sales and product specialist. So I started out as the service guy for myCOOLMAN and LeisureTech. So LeisureTech being the umbrella company that covers Truma, myCOOLMAN, and Malenko. And now I've slowly progressed along through the company to the point where now I am basically the sales rep and service guy covering a large chunk of the country. And yeah, I know all about the beginnings, all about the current stuff. I've been through all the highs and the lows for myCOOLMAN. I was also here when we were selling to Snowy's originally as well. So it's been a long road, but we're back again and it's starting to hit some straps, and the guys in the shop are really talking positively about it, and they're liking what they're seeing, and they're really loving the new range of fridges that we've dropped recently as well. So it's been a good start, and can't wait to see where it's going.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, we're enjoying having it back on the shelves. So technical sales and product specialist is quite a broad name. To me, that reads like you're the guy that knows all the techie stuff. Can you just go out and service and sell the product for us? Kind of like do it all?
Yeah, well, that's kind of how it started. So when I moved into this role from being service rep, so really I'll go back to further than that. So when I was a service guy, I was going out to manufacturers. We were helping them with installs. We were making sure that, when they were putting in fridges into the campers and the hybrid market, like that's predominantly where we sell into for the RVs, for myCOOLMAN chest freezers. It was make sure they have the right ventilation. So when myCOOLMAN started, it wasn't a common thing for fridges to be in hybrid campers, and hybrid campers themselves were also in their infancy. So we were coming in and, we noticed that performance on chest freezers was pretty bad. And it was, developing to make sure they have the right ventilation, make sure they have all the requirement spaces around the fridges so that they can get the best performance out of the product. And then that kind of developed into, and then, I was going in and noticing shortfalls with other things around Truma as well. And I was starting to give them more help and saying, oh, well, if you bought this as well, then you'd get a better experience and the customer have a better experience. And it kind of developed into this role now, along with our main sales rep for this area. And he subsequently moved on. And they were like, well, you're doing such a great job already. You just take over all of it and just cover everything, and it's kind of developed into that now.
Okay.
So
hope they're paying you well.
Yeah.
Oh God, no. It wasn't a progressive move. It was a lateral movement.
Right. Well, I think your product title probably covers all of that.
Yeah.
It describes that pretty well.
So myCOOLMAN's potentially, I would say, maybe been around for about 6 or 7 years actively. Would that be about right?
7 years in July.
Yeah. So what were you involved in the industry before that as well? Or did you were you a refrigeration mechanic and you were just like, oh, I might move to a brand, or how did that work for you?
No, I'm actually a mechanic by trade.
Okay.
So before that, I was a truck mechanic, and then when I started, I was a diesel fitter, so I was mining for quite a while. Mm-hmm. And it's actually my wife, or now wife, back then girlfriend, was the operations manager for Leisure Tech, and it's also one of the directors is my father-in-law.
Oh, so you're a Nepo baby.
Yeah, so that's where, and I was talking to Ben before the show, like I was saying, unofficially since the beginning. So when I was on FIFO, I'd come back in, and my time off, I was doing sort of repair work for them, and I'd go out and I had a basic understanding of what a hot water system does and what an aircon does. And I was like, I got a quick rundown from the team in Melbourne about this is how it's all supposed to work. So if you notice a problem, here's how to fix it, blah, blah, blah. So I was doing a little bit of that on my RDOs. And then 2020 came around and COVID and all that jazz. And obviously it became a lot harder to leave the state and a lot harder to have the freedom that Queensland still kind of kept when I came back to the state. To the point where wife just said, look, next time you go, don't come back because I'm sick of you being away. And then when you're here, you're not really here. And I was like, okay. And happened to be that where Leisure Tech was expanding that much and myCOOLMAN was expanding that much and that quickly that they did then need a service rep based in Queensland. And he was like, well, you can come back and work for me and you're on a 9-to-5 job then and you're home all the time. And I was like, okay, that sounds like, not thinking that the caravan and camping world was that big, especially when you come from mining and you see all of that equipment. And I started, at the time I was like, mindset, I'll be in here for a little bit, get them up and going, and I'm sure there'll be another guy because there's always so many of us that do this kind of work. And I ended up really liking it a lot more than I thought I did. I would. And I also found out that there is quite a shortfall of trade professionals and trained people in the industry as well. So outside of engineers and, salespeople and accountants are everywhere, there wasn't a lot of trained people. So that the people in this industry were starting to value me a lot more to the point where I was also knowing about other people's products as well, whether or not Leisure Tech sold them and dealing with them as well. So I was then helping them like full manufacturer, like go into a manufacturer and we'd start talking about the whole van and it ended up I was really liking it and, I felt like this was where it all, stars aligned and I ended up where I should be.
Nice.
Yeah, nice. So can you just explain there's the myCOOLMAN, TrueMetal, Leisure Tech thing. So Leisure Tech is the parent company and then TrueMetal and myCOOLMAN are brands underneath that. Is that the right way? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
cool.
like we stock, supply and provide the service for those brands. And Malenko is also part of Snowy's as well.
Yep.
So Malenko being caravans, safety and security. Mm-hmm. So that's towing mirrors, safety products, everything like that.
Okay. And the myCOOLMAN name, I know I saw a comment the other day somewhere that someone said, it annoys me how they capitalize their name because you've got like lowercase, and then all uppercase. Obviously it stands out, but where does it come from? Obviously, because it's a fridge, cool, makes sense. But why myCOOLMAN? Where does that come from?
So originally, all the directors involved in myCOOLMAN and all the founders of myCOOLMAN brand and Leisure Tech was all the directors from Waco. So Waco, we all know, has been bought out by Dometic now, and now it's fully Dometic range. That's where they all came from. And one of the directors for, people heavily involved for Waco was actually a guy called Tat, and he's based in Hong Kong, and he had myCOOL, which was massive in Asia. So the cool kind of came from there, and like myCOOLMAN, and it ended up being that Tio Waning, he was one of the original founders for Waco, and Andreas, Bischoff, who was the managing director for Waco in Australia and Asia Pacific. So we call that APAC. And they were having beers in about, I think it was 2018, early 2018, in Mallorca, Spain. And they were just, reminiscing, and neither of them deny who said it first, but they also, one of them said, we should come back and try and do it again and just start from ground up. Yeah. And then they started talking about names, and one of them spat out myCOOLMAN. And that one kind of stuck, and it began from there. And all of a sudden they all got back on board quickly. They'd all retired from the industry, and they'd been retired for a few years, and I'm guessing they were bored. And I was starting to see it, I was around him in that period between leaving then Dometic after he bought out Waco. He'd have the transition period and everything like that to myCOOLMAN. The golf was starting to not be enough anymore, and there's only so much of the world you can see before you start thinking, I need a day job.
Okay.
Yeah, so and then it just all came back, and all of a sudden everyone was back on board again. We're talking to all the people involved again. So even the same engineers as Waco, same design people, even the same factory from myCOOL. So it's all the people that were involved and are involved heavily with myCOOLMAN, from manufacturing through to finished product, is all controlled by myCOOLMAN. So it's actually very unique in that way.
Right. So the name literally started over a few beers. So how many people are involved? Like you're obviously involved in some technical side of it, but when it comes to, I don't know, the design, because your fridges, they haven't, well, you've got a new range now, but your core range hasn't changed from the original series that came out when we first had them at Snowy's a number of years ago.
Yep.
I mean, obviously the design's really good. You've obviously not felt a need to make any changes, but who's involved in that? How many extra people are involved in that ground up process?
So originally between engineers, design, there was one designer. His name's Heiner Weedy. He's a great guy. Known him for a number of years now. And also a few engineers are based in Hong Kong. So I think originally there was about 10 or 12.
Okay.
And now we've grown over 60, I think 70 employees now. This is globally too. Mm-hmm. So myCOOLMAN, we are not just in Australia, we're in Asia, we're in the Middle East. And then with the Truma involvement, we've now launched also the Truma cooler in Europe and in America. So myCOOLMAN as a brand is everywhere.
So what's you just mentioned the Truma cooler. Is Truma, I know you're obviously both owned by Leisure Tech, but are you saying that Truma is technically in myCOOLMAN, like the cooler? Is it just rebranded essentially?
Yeah. So Truma, obviously, point in that is Truma have the people on the ground in Europe and US. So instead of myCOOLMAN or Leisure Tech having to invest the money when Truma's already invested into Leisure Tech, the umbrella company, mm-hmm. we use the people on the ground there and the existing warehouses, the existing salespeople, all of that. And Truma was involved in the testing procedures as well. So they know the fridge mm-hmm. back to front. Mm-hmm. So it just made sense that those guys then incorporate the fridge into their range. And part of that was they wanted to have it called Truma, and no problem with that. It still says myCOOLMAN on the compressor. You look inside the grill there, it's still a Blue-Gen compressor. Mm-hmm. All of the internals the exact same. It just says Truma on it instead of myCOOLMAN.
Okay. So it's probably a good segue into moving on to a little bit more about the product itself. I usually dig around before an interview like this to try and find positives and negatives on a product to discuss in an episode like this. There's not a whole lot about myCOOLMAN, which I guess is good news. If people aren't saying good or bad things, then I guess that's good news. But what makes myCOOLMAN different? You've talked about Blue-Gen Compressor, but if you give us your sales pitch on what genuinely makes myCOOLMAN different, and I guess in your instance better than the rest.
So it comes down to features. So at the end of the day, all the fridges on the market cool things down. It just comes down to the user experience, in my opinion. And that comes back to things like we have, and I still believe we're the only fridge on the market to have 12-volt input on both ends of the fridge, which comes back to that usability. We were one of the first ones to have the Bluetooth app as well. We've got flush mount handles. We've got a bottle opener on the fridge, which at the time was groundbreaking. And, I was always guilty of forgetting it. And then, you're always a guy using your teeth or a spoon or something at campsite. Excuse me. And the other thing is we made it a lot of internal changes. So with the Blue-Gen compressor at the time, it was revolutionary because everyone else was using third party for internal processes. So we came out, we redesigned the compressor, we made it smaller, we made it half the weight, which was a big thing at the time. And with all that, it then makes it more efficient, and we can then add more literage inside the fridge. But then we came back to, okay, one of the big drawbacks at the time was that fridges can be pretty frail when it comes to camping and touring in Australia, because touring is in Australia anyway, is very rugged and very harsh. And some of the places I've been lucky enough to go with myCOOLMAN, it's bashed around the equipment quite a lot. So then what we did, we'll take back some of the literage and we'll add in reinforcement, and we'll increase the it's the insulation. That's the word I'm looking for in the fridge, so that it then works more efficient. And to the point now where with all the reinforcement we've put in the fridge, we've had people drop cars on the fridges to see how strong they are.
Drop cars on fridges?
Yep. So we've actually got a video, and it was helped by a couple of the guys that we've worked with in the industry as well. They had 4 96s, and they dropped an Toyota 80 series on them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Just to show that, when I say dropped, it was on a hoist and they lowered it down onto them to so that it could hold up a car.
Righto.
And one year at the 4-wheel drive show in Melbourne, we also had a Iveco Daily flexed up on our 30-litre as well.
I was going to say that'd be cool at a 4-wheel drive show, but you've already been there.
Yeah. So, we've done all these things just to show how tough and rugged these ones are. And we've also had that same guy who flexed his Daily up. He actually recently rolled the Daily on its side, and it was actually sitting on a pair of 60 litres he had in the back of the tray. And it was sitting on there up for an hour. And apparently he righted it, and the fridge stayed running the entire time, which if you look at our manual, it's not supposed to happen, but the fridge kept going. It's still ticking along. Outside of some scratches and a couple of dents, fridge is still ticking along today, which is,
yeah, right.
I don't know many other brands on the market that can say that.
Wow. What is it?
I ask? I have a question, about your Blue-Gen compressor. Now, obviously, when Waco were running, they were using the Danfoss compressor, which is obviously quite well known. And yes, other fridge brands do use third-party compressors, and those compressors do tend to come with generations of reliability behind them. When people often in my job, especially within customer support and talking to people about their fridge choice, almost always the very first question they go to is the compressor. Which compressor does this brand use? And I think at the end of the day, you would be naive to dismiss the reputation of a compressor as one of the leading choices in a person's decision with their fridge.
Yeah.
How important, given your experience as a servicing agent and a mechanic and all of that sort of thing, how important is that compressor in terms of when you're comparing it between those reputable brands? What are the main differences between, say, a COP compressor or a Danfoss compressor or your Blue-Gen compressor? What are the differences? What makes one better than the other, or in terms of performance? How do you choose when you're looking at those?
So, good question. So for a lot of it, it comes down to the user experience comes down to efficiency. So what I mean by that, how much energy does it use? And with the Blue-Gen at the time, like making it so much smaller then meant it didn't need so much energy to operate. So outside of Engel's compressor, which to this day is like they haven't changed it because they don't need to because it's so good. Like one moving part means it never breaks. With ours, it still uses that traditional rotary style but we just made it smaller. So it no longer needs that so much energy to create that pressure to then push the refrigerant around the fridge, and comes back to user customer experience. They can go away for longer. And now the technology in batteries is probably caught up to a degree where it doesn't matter so much anymore. Like you got more amperage for a smaller battery, and we're getting more input from solar now and things like that. But at the time when it was launched, the efficiency was what drew everyone to the brand. Like they could go away, and at the time, I was still using a 100 amp AGM battery, and that was pretty common. Like that was what everyone was pretty much using. So to go away for a week at a time with no problem at all, with especially the smaller fridges where they were using less than an amp an hour, like that was unprecedented at the time. And like even going back to your comment about other brands, like LG built their reputation around their compressor. Like they built this thing that was unbeatable, it was unbreakable, it was efficient. And that was where we kind of led into, and that was when we took at the beginning a lot of industry experience from talking to other guys in the industry as well, what they'd had with their experience. We'd also come off Waco with 40 years of mobile cooling experience. Like you can't beat that. And we knew what the limitations were, and we knew what we had to beat to be better, essentially, and to offer a difference. And also coming back to that, when you make your own, we now control our process through everything. So from design to manufacturing to quality control to even after-sale support, we know all the specs, we can supply all the spare parts, which then leads on to after-sale support. So it's great to have a great product. It's great to have a great customer experience, but in the event that something goes wrong, you need to have that knowledge, and people value the knowledge. And even for me, if I can speak confidently about what's going on in their fridge and what their fridge does, that then gives the customer the confidence as well, and also the service agent the confidence to then talk to the customer about what it could be, and then also be able to fix whatever issue they might be coming up with. So it was a range of things that then just leads on to, making myCOOLMAN the brand it is at the moment, and leaning on all that industry experience of what they'd seen over the years and what challenges they'd had to overcome and things like that. So now we're no longer restricted, and through COVID, of all the things to have your own supplier base, we weren't relying on third party anymore, which thankfully, because in that time, everyone, they were relying on third party source, and we were seeing it with a couple of other products that Leisure gets in. When they're getting it off a third party, during that time, it became very difficult because the market just went through the roof. And we were seeing it as well, like camping in Australia, because we couldn't leave. Everyone just like, okay, we'll go out and see this great nation that we have. And through having our own products and our own in-house support, we were able to, bring this through, and we were able to monitor our own growth, so to speak, as it all progressed along. So, yeah, coming back to it, the difference is we make it ourselves, we control it ourselves. And because of all this industry experience, we're able to launch a product that at the time, and still to this day, that's why we haven't needed to change, and I can't see us changing anytime soon. The product works, it's efficient, it's compact, and that's all the things that just tick all the right boxes for people camping out today. And that also helped launch our new series of fridges. Well, we're calling it the Recreational Series, where I call it personally, I call it everyday fridge. It's stripped out a couple of the things from this premium range, which made it so robust and so reliable, to now this fridge this range where we have, it's lighter, it's easier, and we're able to get the weight down because the compressor is smaller, it's more compact, and then it's still able to maintain that efficiency for these fridges. So you're still getting great customer experience, but now the customer experience is enhanced because the fridge isn't so heavy anymore, with all the added reinforcements, with all the added and taking all that back, it's now, we don't have the metal band anymore, things like that. It's now a great fridge, but it's also now more everyday usable, if that makes sense.
So that Rex series, are you saying it is the same compressor or it's a lighter compressor again?
Yeah.
It's the same compressor?
Same compressor. So we made, for a couple of them, because we had the patterns, there was originally 3 different sizes of compressor. So for the 30, 36, 44, had the smallest one we could physically do. Then we went up to the 60 litre, the 53. Yeah, that was it. Those 2 fridges there had an intermediate size. And then the 69, 73, 85, and 196 and the 105 had the larger version. So, and then why I say that is, when smaller fridges, we don't need as much refrigerant to cool the fridge down. As we go up to the bigger sizes, we need to add more refrigerant because it's just physically a bigger fridge. So it's how it all works. And when you're talking those larger dual zones as well, like the dual zones are the sizes of our smaller fridge single zones in each zone on its own. So you need that more capacity to be able to cool it down in an efficient and timely manner.
Okay. So the Blue-Gen compressor, is that literally, it sounds like there's the same thing, just in different sizes. Is it literally the same thing, just shrunk down or enlarged?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way to put it, is like it starts at this size and then it just got smaller and more compressed.
Okay.
And that also then comes back to the efficiency. Like we don't need to have this big compressor in a 30-litre single zone fridge, and just like it's overkill basically.
Okay. So that, just back on we jumped ahead a little bit, but the Rex series, you talked about the differences there. So it's the same compressor, but you strip down, I don't think it comes with a 240 volt adapter off the top of my head. Is that correct?
So with their premium range, the 240 plug is built in. So you just need the lead to run to the outlet.
Yeah.
With the Rec series, we've taken away the 240 on the fridge itself. So you can basically that little component that was inbuilt in the premium range is now just on a plug.
Okay.
Going to a 12 volt socket on the fridge, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And other things you've stripped out, because they are really good value and still really polished looking fridges. They've created heaps of interest in the shop. But are you saying there's other hidden things that are not included in the Rex series that are in the other series? It doesn't have that robustness? Am I right in saying that? Like, what else have you stripped out? Because it's a common question, because they look really good.
Yeah.
They kind of look
so like
the same.
If anyone does ask, like the color, like I've had a lot of questions about color as well. The color is actually platinum.
Okay.
So that's what raw platinum looks like.
Righto.
And then going back to your thing about robustness, it's had so in our premium range, we have these metal beams, for lack of a better word, going through the fridge, which is what gives it that sturdiness, why we've been able to drop cars on them and things like that. Like that's where it's got to have that support beams in there. With the Rec fridges, we don't have that anymore. So we still have a little bit of metal behind the surface, and that's so we can magnetize our power pack to it, but it's no longer used as support as such. So those metal beams, it adds weight, and which is why the premium fridges are a lot heavier. So and that's coming back to my comment about the Rec series being the everyday fridge, because it's now lighter and easier to use. So the great thing is it's still cooling things down in a very efficient manner, but it's now just being able to pick it up and take it away and take it everywhere you want to go. And that's coming back to, that everyday use of, and also a little bit more stripped down, so that, if you just wanted to be that guy going in a tent or just going away for, we only go on a weekend or to barbecues, that's all we really do. We don't need this heavy duty, robust fridge that can go anywhere and do anything. I just need something that cools my beers down while I'm sitting beside the barbecue or beside the pool. It's great for that.
Okay. So go back to the standard series then. I feel like if you look at your website, you guys advertise your product, but you don't necessarily go into a lot of these. There seem to be hidden features. You always hold it close to your heart and don't let people know about it. Other sites you'll go to and they'll just list every button, feature, whatever. Like it's just a big list of all these features, but you guys haven't quite got that. So, but there's obviously a bunch that is in there that we don't know about. So I vaguely remember a long time ago when we first had them, there was used a byproduct of the heat from the compressor around the edge of the unit to stop it frosting over. Like what other little hidden secrets have you got that can really
that's actually so it's called a mullion heater.
Okay.
So it's like this little ring around the top of the fridge there, and basically it does heat up, and that's to stop the whole fridge frosting over. So everyone remember from bygone era, if you left your fridge running for too long, you had to go over, turn it off, open the lid, wait for it to defrost, tip the water out, turn it back on, and away you go again. To get around that, and again, coming back to all this industry experience, basically put this ring in, and it stops it from icing up, so you can just leave it running. And we have a lot of people that leave these fridges running as a second fridge, and I'm guilty of it as well. Like I've got an 85 at home, and it's literally just full of beer and meat. Like that's all that ever gets left in there. And I live in Queensland on the Gold Coast, so the humidity up here is chronic. And I remember from Dad's old Engel, like he's had it for it used to be my grandfather's, and it's just, it's been through the ringer and it's been used for years and years and years. And every now and again, he's got to go over, especially in the summer months when it does get more humid, got to turn it off, open the lid, let it defrost, tip the water out, go again.
Okay.
So it's one of those features where, coming back to that customer experience where it just works and they don't need to change anything. They don't need to do anything. And, one of the things I've always really, really liked and you don't boast about it. Like for us, we want to have that customer experience, and that's what we're all about. Like we're a very customer first company, and it's part of our core values as well. Like we want to be the supplier of choice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we come back. Like we'll rave on about our efficiencies and the sturdiness, but when it comes to those nitty gritty features, like we don't need to go into it. Like we just like the customer to have a good experience.
Cool. So I'm doing all the talking in this episode.
It's fine.
You're all good. I want to throw to you. So efficiency with fridge is almost always something that's brought up when everyone's looking for a fridge. They want to know which one's the most efficient, and people get bogged down in amps and runtime and all of those sort of things. And our take is to usually say don't get too caught up in it, because is that whole topic is loaded with variables. What's your take if someone says, how efficient are your fridges compared to other brands?
I always say, how long's a piece of string? It's kind of one of those things, like it's all so weather and use dependent. So for me, I've got permanently running in the back of my car is a 20 litre. And I know for a fact that on a hot summer's day, it's working hard.
Mm-hmm.
But then traversely on a cold winter's day, not at all. And again, it comes back to and it just stays running off the dual battery system constantly. And I go back to, I can tell you I'd rather tell you more about experience than here's the numbers on a sheet, because whilst yes, we have testing standards and we're very open about, all of our fridges are tested, ambient temperature is 35 degrees. Here's the temperature we ran at, and here's how we got to the usage. But if I'm not telling you from personal experience, this is what I've seen, this is what I've had, you're just going to go away and I'm just going to go compare this sheet to the next sheet.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we always put an emphasis on. So whenever anyone starts at Leisure Tech, a lot of the times they'll go down and they'll get a fridge and they'll take it away for the weekend, and they'll come back and they'll rave on about, we ran it off a power station for a whole weekend, and we're running our laptop, we're running Starlink, we're running other things, and nothing went flat. Like normally the fridge runs our stuff flat, but this time it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll come back and, it was like, well, that's exactly what we want. Like I can sit here and run through our data sheet and say, well, it compares to other companies like this, but without real world experience, that's from my perspective, it's pointless.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I've always thought that all of these fridges are kind of playing in the same, roughly the same parameters of efficiency. And you're going to get different figures on different fridges in different environments, no matter how you look at it. So we'll just let everyone. It's a bit like fuel efficiency, right? Everyone's got better mileage out of their tank
that's the thing.
the next from the same car.
Yeah, I've seen fuel efficiencies where a BMW had to chase a Prius around a racetrack, and the Prius was less fuel efficient because it was driving as hard as it could.
Yeah.
So, it's things like that. Like, it's always how you use it that comes back to how efficient it is. Yeah. And again, coming off experiences, I've had these other fridges, and they do use a lot of energy, like especially the older ones. Like, we all expect that. So then, when myCOOLMAN launched, it came out with this revolutionary thing that now didn't need that much energy to run, and you could get longer periods of time. And because it was smaller, it was developing less heat. So then, for the guys who put the fridges in the canopy, it's, the downside of a fridge in there is, I guess, it's cooling things down, but it's creating more heat inside the canopy as well. So smaller compressor, less heat. So it's now fighting itself less, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And it also then comes back to that hybrid market as well now, where everyone's putting the chest freezers in hybrids and camper trailers. So you've got all the tunnel boots under there. So when the fridge is creating heat in that tight space, it's now not just trying to cool down itself. It's also trying to cool down from the heat that its own compressor is creating in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so when you make something smaller and more efficient, and we were one of the we then brought out cycling as well. So now your portable fridge cycles on and off. It doesn't just stay running all the time.
Mm-hmm. How many? Do you know how many duty cycles per hour your compressor will run? Sorry.
I said to him at the start of the episode, we're not going to throw any curly questions
at
him.
Sorry, mate. My apologies.
My brain goes yes, where it goes. I do. So what if anyone ever has looked, and I'll go back to the one that I always compare, which is the 85. Like, it's probably one of our best selling fridges. When it's running, it's using about 4.5 amps an hour. So that's if it ran continuously, it would use 4.5 amps per hour. We test back to have it runs 3 amps exactly per hour, running at -15 and 3 degrees in 35-degree ambient temperature. So if anyone wants to do the math on how many duty cycles that actually works out to, you'll be able to work out how many times it does turn on and off. So no, I don't know exactly how many times it turns on and off. I'll say that from turning it on at 28 degrees inside the fridge takes roughly half an hour to get down to temperature for both sides. So that's not an hour combined. That's half an hour for both sides to come down. And then it'll cycle off, and you'll probably see again, coming back to ambient temperature, 5 to 10 minutes between cycles.
Okay.
And again, it'll turn off. Let's just work 5 minutes. It'll turn off for 5 minutes, turn off for 5 minutes. So I'll keep going back and forwards like that.
Okay. What about, you touched a little bit on testing standards before. Is efficiency sort of the main test that you do, or what else in your whole manufacturing process do you have that kind of quality control and testing standard? What do you apply there?
Yeah, so it's not just so it's all about, we do humidity test, we do maximum minimum temperatures that it'll operate in, and then there's also still the industry standard tests. So obviously, because it's got 240 in there, because it's got refrigerant in there, those have there is still the industry standard that we have to uphold, and that's across the board for everyone doing refrigeration. But then we go above and beyond with, we now know here's the efficiency rating we'll get at 30 degrees in 80% humidity. Here's the efficiency we'll get at 28 degrees and 85% humidity, things like this. So we know when it comes up, and, our fridge range is from, I can't remember the minus because it never comes up in Australia, but up to 55 degrees. And we've seen cases I've had conversations with guys in Birdsville, and they actually say it's 55 degrees today. The fridge is holding temperature, which is pretty unreal.
Yeah, okay.
And, guys have come back and said, this is, we'll say the fridge taps out at 45 degrees, but we've had cases again, like where I've stayed in Birdsville, like a 55-degree day, the fridge is still running, which is, you know, and we test up to industry standards 45 degrees, which is what we call tropical climate. That's what they're rated to. So anything after that is a bonus. So, you know, I haven't had yet to have anything above that. And again, the fridge still has safety procedures built into it to stop it from burning itself out and stopping it from destroying your battery system as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What about insulation and the lights? Obviously, we talked a lot about the electrical side of it. I'm assuming if someone buys a cheaper fridge, there's going to be a cheaper form of insulation that goes into it. I don't actually know much about just what's used for insulation, but what can you say on that topic?
So for ours is injection molding. So basically we'll have the fridge put together, all of the tubing and everything like that done. And then what comes up is, you know, you basically just then inject the insulation into the fridge and then it foams out. So for us, it's 55 mil on the premium, 45 mil on the recreational series. What you'll see with other fridges more commonly is just less. So they'll have 30, 35 mil insulated shells. And I also, again, coming back to personal experience, it also depends on what external material they use on the fridge, which can drastically change your performance. So in Australia, if you're leaving a fridge exposed, and for me, I left a 36-litre exposed in the back of my ute for the best part of 2 years. And that was in some pretty harsh climates as well. I feel like plastic, whilst everyone knocks it back saying it's not that well, no, it doesn't work that well in the environment. I feel like it holds heat less than, say, if I went and bought a metal fridge thinking that it was more robust because the shell was metal. Like metal will hold the heat, and then the fridge is trying to counteract that heat, and it's just, you know, constantly mashing together and fighting each other. But by having a plastic shell and all that insulation in between, it's then, you know, it's able to operate more efficiently and hold that coolness inside.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's probably a good segue into talking about your power pack, because I think you're one of the only fridges that have a combination plastic metal exterior. It's a majority of plastic or polypropylene, I think it is. And then you've got that metal strip around the middle, and you've touched on it before, your battery pack that's magnetic to stick on the side, which is a pretty cool feature. But I'll tell the story here for you, but I'll pass to you in a sec. But obviously that makes the fridge largely portable. You can put this battery on the side. You can charge it from your vehicle while you're driving, put it on the side, and then take the fridge into your tent or whatever. It doesn't have to be attached to your car. It's a pretty cool feature. It's only a small battery pack. A lot of people kind of go, I can't think, what is it? Is it 15 amp hours? Is that right? Yep. Yeah. A lot of people kind of look at it and think, well, it's not going to run the fridge for long, but that's not its purpose, right?
No. And that was always the idea behind it was take your fridge where you've never taken your fridge before. So and we hold the patent on magnetic batteries. You won't see anyone anywhere else with a magnetic battery.
Nice.
It seems like when you think about it, you think surely someone else has done it. But up until then, no, they hadn't. And it was a big thing for us. Now that, you know, rock up, magnetize my battery, plug it in, and now I just pick my fridge up and away I go. So for that, like taking your fridge where you'd never taken your fridge before, now I can have my fridge down on the beach with me. I don't have this clunky big power station thing or a battery box coming with me as a separate, you know, someone else has got to walk along beside me. I can just pick my fridge up as one person and off I go. And now with the Rec series, like even the little one, like you guys, I don't know if you've seen the 20 litre and how easy to use, and like that magnetized to that'll run that fridge for the best part of 24 hours. So when you think about it from that point of view, you know, there's normally 24 hours between you arriving on a campsite and then leaving again.
Yeah.
So I could now, in that instance, I can now have my fridge plugged in or just off this little battery and away I go. Like at the time, 15 amps in lithium was like lithium being, at the time we launched it, there wasn't a lot of technology in lithium. Obviously, that's now changed massively with the way the world's going. And 15 amps, now everyone kind of looks down on that saying it's not enough, but it was never the idea to replace a dual battery system. It was always the idea of I'm now going to have my fridge next to me without any leads or having to worry about where a power point is or anything like that for, a few hours. And it's running, it's keeping my drinks cold, it's keeping my food cold, keeping my ice creams in there as well. So for that purpose, it's been perfect.
Yeah, okay. We have questions too. Can I use that battery pack on my other branded fridge, which is possible, right? Provided the lead works.
Yep. So I won't encourage it, but definitely you can. So I will say out there that there are some fridges definitely that I know of and have had experience where it does draw too much than what the power pack can handle. So rambling a little bit, but in the internals of the fridge, it's like a little 10 amp resettable relay. So if your fridge isn't drawing any more than 10 amps or even any 12 volt product, so I'm a little bit naughty and I use that battery as a 12 volt battery. Provided it's not drawing any more than 10 amps, it'll run anything. It's still at the end of the day a 12 volt battery.
Okay. And people also think, how am I going to charge it? I'm trying to think back when we first got it. I think you could charge it from the wall or something, but you've now got a DC charger that you can add to it, so people can technically charge it. Well, you can charge it while you're driving to your campsite and then take it out of your car, put it in your tent, put it back in your car, charge it, driving the next day.
Yeah. So, and then again, that's coming back to the dual 12 volt sockets. So what I tell a lot of people is now, because the fridge will always draw off the strongest supply. So from all the fridges, 12 volt points, what you can do, you magnetize your power pack on there. You have your DC charger plugged into the car. You plug your power pack into the fridge because what I'll also side note is you can't charge your power pack and have it running your fridge at the same time. And then what you can do, because most car, well, pretty much every car now comes with more than one 12 volt socket, you then plug your fridge into the car as well. So you turn your car on and now the power pack's recharging, but the car's running your fridge as well. Then you pull up, turn the car off, and now the power pack's taken over and your fridge is. So essentially, if you're constantly getting in and out of your car and you don't want to have a dual battery system in your car, you kind of can. So provided you've got those dual sockets, and there's even products out there where you can just plug in one point and plug into 12 volt sockets from there, you can now have that dual battery system where if you're only stepping away from your car from, for short periods of time, you can just keep it running through that system.
Right. So I'll use my setup as an example, just to sort of get people to understand. I've got a bit of an old setup in my car. It's an old sealed lead acid battery, so 100 amp hour sealed lead acid battery. And I don't have a DC charger, so I'm not running any lithium batteries. If I was to add this to my system, from what I'm gathering from what you're saying, I could do that using the DC charger. So I can run the fridge from my 100 amp hour battery in the car while I'm driving. But you're saying I could, if I had a myCOOLMAN fridge, which I don't at the moment, but if I had a myCOOLMAN fridge, because you've got plugs at both ends, I could put the myCOOLMAN battery in and plug that in at the other end. So I'd have both power sources attached at the same time. And as long as that goes through the DC charger, I'm then able to charge a lithium battery from my car and then take it out at the end. Does that sound like a legitimate setup? How I would legitimately be able to use your battery pack?
Yeah, so like that, and that's actually how I've set up my wife's car, actually.
Okay, right.
So she's basically got the fridge is plugged into the car, and on one side, and then the power pack is plugged in at the other side,
mm-hmm.
and then the DC charger is plugged into another accessory socket.
Yeah.
So when she turns the car on, power pack recharges.
Yep.
But then the car is running the fridge. So exactly like what you were saying.
Yep.
And then when she turns it off, the lithium has a stronger 12 volt supply than what that AGM or the lead acid battery will ever have. So then power pack takes over.
That's pretty cool. Okay, That's good to know. We'll have to make sure we you keep that in mind when you speak to customers, because everyone wants to know, can I plug this into here and how can I use that? But that's a pretty cool way to be able to use it.
The accessory for the accessory.
Yeah. What about troubleshooting with a fridge? Actually, sorry, I skipped one here. Noise. Is that a test standard that you have? Noise of a fridge, and what measures do you take, if any, to try and reduce the noise?
So yeah, you can create some measures to reduce the noise. So it probably comes down to where it all is mounted there. So like the grill that's around all the electronics and the compressor that's down the bottom of the fridge there, you could insulate points to create less noise. Sorry, reduce the noise, not create less noise. But then you have the drawback of it'll then hold the heat in, and then everything works less efficiently. So it's like you pick one or the other kind of thing. So I know a lot of people, they'll create ways of reducing the noise coming out of the fridge, but then flip side of that is it then holds the heat in that area.
Right.
So again, coming back, and I will say, I won't say myCOOLMAN's the quietest on the market. And I think Snowy's, from memory, actually did a test when they had myCOOLMAN in.
I did that, yeah. But
I remember seeing the video.
It was a very rough test. It was just literally a decibel meter on my phone, and it was actually in this room before we renovated. It was an old safe, and we tried to find a quiet spot to I can't remember if myCOOLMAN was part of that mix or not at the time.
Yeah, it was. Because I remember our CEO calling me being like, "Is this actually a test?" I was like, he's like, "Can we actually use this? Like, can we say anything?" Because I'm pretty sure we were the worst from memory.
Oh, really?
And I was like, he's like, "Have you done any tests like this?" So I was like, I can never remember a customer coming back saying our fridge is too noisy.
Okay.
Since we've grown so much, we definitely have had some people come back, for all the people that run their fridges in their car, saying yes, they do notice it more than their last fridge. But then I come back with, again, it comes back to that efficiency thing. Like, you reduce noise by adding insulation, and when you add insulation, you hold the heat. So it all comes backwards and forwards. It's kind of like, which one would you prefer?
Yeah,
is how I look at it. And for me, and for a lot of people out there, I'd rather a more efficient fridge that's slightly a little bit louder than the other way around.
Okay. At the end of the day, we're not talking a noisy, like an old kitchen fridge that.
Yeah, we're not talking a knocking or anything like that. And
it's a hum.
Yeah.
It's not noisy. None of them are. Yeah.
If you've ever been in your kitchen and it's quiet and you can hear your fridge kick in, then it's kind of like that.
Yeah. Yep. What about troubleshooting? I've just noticed this list that I've given you here. I don't know what I meant to write, but I've got a bullet point here that just says warts.
I actually thought that was typo of parts.
Good one. I was racking my brain thinking, what did I mean there? Yeah, so I meant parts, not warts. But troubleshooting, so service agents, spare parts. You've got it's now a 5-year warranty on everything. It used to be 2 or 3 years on the compressor.
It used to be 3 and 5. So it was 3 years on the body parts, 5 years on the compressor.
Okay, yep. Now 5 on everything?
Yeah, so now the Recreational Series, that's 3 years for everything, and then the Premium range is 5 years for everything.
Okay.
So, and part of my job before I took on this role, and I still do it to a degree, is I was going around to all of our service agents and providing training, support, giving them comprehensive parts lists as well. So again, coming back to us manufacturing everything from scratch, controlling everything from start to finish, we also then have our own spare parts. So again, we're not relying on third parties creating all these additional parts so that we have spares, or relying on these third parties to provide us the technical specifications and support so we can then provide it. We've made everything, so we know everything about our fridge, and then we can just pass that on to our service agents. So we empower them with the knowledge of everything, and we also give them the spare parts so that everything is interchangeable, replaceable, now more often than not, people can call up and they'll diagnose an issue over the phone because it is, they have we've provided that training, that support, so they know what everything is. And it's also coming back again to the electronics we put in there. So we were one of the first, I think we were the first one at the time to put in fault codes in a portable fridge. So it comes up, like E1 errors, low voltage, E5 errors, over temperature, E0 was a thermostat. So all these errors where the fridge recognized its own, not its own, but, the problems that it could be.
Gotcha. Okay. And service agents are pretty widely spread all over Australia?
Yep. So we've got over 200 service agents nationwide.
Okay, cool.
And that's just for refrigeration.
Awesome.
So again, Legitech being the umbrella, then we've got to expand and have guys that know how to replace caravan doors and gas heaters, hot waters. So Legitech as a brand has a lot more, but purely for myCOOLMAN, I think we're now over 200 service agents nationwide.
Okay. So evolution over the years, obviously Rec Series is the, sorry.
I have a question.
You have a question? Sorry.
So you guys, 2019, so that's about 6-7 years now. Obviously, I wasn't surprised. 2018?
Yeah, July
cool.
2018 is when we launched.
Beautiful. So I wasn't surprised per se, but when we got myCOOLMAN back in the range after not having them for a few years, they're exactly the same. Your model numbers are exactly the same. They look exactly the same. Now, the aesthetic that you guys have gone for is like I had an old Waco CF, right? So the aesthetic is still in line with the old school Waco. It sort of lines up with Evercool's sort of travel mate fridge and a bit of that previous generation of fridges that we've known. Is that a strategic thing in terms of recognizing the aesthetic of the fridge in the market? Because obviously myCOOLMAN is a new name, right? And you've got Engel and you've got Dometic, who I think you could argue are probably the two like larger brands in the fridge space.
Yep.
Then you've got your Evercool and your Bushmans, who are a little bit smaller and things like that. Is the aesthetic of myCOOLMAN about visual recognition to the older Waco, or is it just about you guys not really investing in the aesthetics, potentially progression as much as other brands? Which I'm not trying to be offensive at all with the question. No. It's more just a noticeable.
This is a very open-ended question.
When I said at the start of the episode, I'm not going to throw any curly questions at you, that was me personally. I obviously can't speak for Lauren.
Well, I don't know what I want to ask until I'm in the moment.
Yeah. I think it's got a good rugged look personally that kind of fits the market, which I assume is where
it was definitely, when it launched, it was definitely about looking robust. And I think, it came back to things like the steel band, the corner guards and things like that. Like it was all about making it look like it was going to last. So there was definitely some thought 100% on, and it was actually, I remember seeing quite a few different ideas getting floated about how it was going to look. The brand name, and I'll say the font, I think it is, when you come from those guys that had 40 years of this brand and we lived and breathed this name and we were all about it and we all backed it and we all believed in it, then it got bought out and you could slowly, at that point at the time we launched, it was Dometic by Waco.
Mm-hmm.
Waco by Dometic, sorry, not the other way around. So you could start to see it was going to start getting slowly eaten up. I think they were a little bit nostalgic, I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
That's my opinion, looking at it from the outside in.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely from the design point of the fridge itself at the time, I can see what you mean, where in 7 years we haven't had a design change. Again, coming back to don't fix what's not broken.
Yep.
And probably also now where the rec fridges now sit, like instead of redesigning myCOOLMAN as this is what it looks like and this is what it is, we launched a new range. So we actually shrunk down. So when we first started, we had 6 fridges. We expanded that out to 10 in the premium range. We've now shrunk that back down to 6 and now launched 6 rec fridges. so that there's now 2 tiers and 2 different designs as well.
Okay.
So I think that answers your question to a degree.
Yep.
I want to know how, potentially you've sort of answered it already in the not as, probably the answer is not as much, but how important is that aesthetics in this day and age? Because what I've personally seen over my life as a camper and buying camping gear and now working in the industry for quite some time is the more the generations progress, the more the way things look is important. And often we'll see brands releasing a version 2 and the only thing that's changed is the aesthetics. And it seems to be a little bit more of a trend towards a continual refinement of how something looks to maintain relevance. Has that ever been something that's been raised with you within your sort of product development discussions and things like that? Is how can we keep the brand fresh and engaging as time goes by?
It has been some discussions around that. It's very, so we at one stage there, and it's even now the same, brand recognition, doing online research, and there's a lot of think tanks now that will provide you the clicks you get on Google and things like that. And at one stage we were the second largest, and we're talking by a percentage point of clicks on the internet. So our brand recognition from myCOOLMAN was massive, and I take that into consideration with all the people that we were partnering with over the years and all the online influencers that also helped us grow and show our brand off to the nation. In terms of changing the fridge itself, there was some discussions. There's been a few internal discussions about actually more partnering with things like Breast Cancer Foundation and things like that. With those internal discussions of, we'll do this limited range of, we'll take breast cancer, for example, of doing a pink fridge. Like, would people get on board with this? Or, do we just say, no, we'll do a full change in the range? And it's been going backwards and forwards. And when we do the change, we kind of don't just want to put, lipstick on it. We kind of want to create something new. And, we're now at that point of what things can we do better while still maintaining that quality. So it's a bit of a roundtable discussion. It keeps going backwards and forwards. So, yes, whilst there's discussions in the background, there's been nothing firm done, especially for the premium range. And I think, again, that's where that came, the rec range came in and fitted in there for that perfectly. So we could have a change without having a change, if that makes sense.
Maybe do an orange one. Snowy's orange.
I wouldn't buy it.
All right.
Only because
that's actually orange is actually, so again, coming back to that breast cancer discussion, MND. So their color is orange.
Yeah.
So there's been these minor considerations. And again, we're coming off all this industry experience and all these industry leaders coming back and say, we've done this with these people or with these groups or organizations, and it's worked to a degree. I won't say it's a marketing tool. It's definitely more of a fundraising exercise and an awareness thing. But it then just gives you that flexibility of, we did this and it was pretty cool and people liked it.
Darchi, you've got one of their chairs. They've done a breast cancer awareness version of it, which has just got pink in it. Same thing. It's just, they sell them side by side. It just creates a bit of, or makes people, refreshes the brand, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
Evolution over the years, obviously we've touched on a fair bit, not with your core range, not much has changed because, as you said, it's not broken, so we don't need to fix it. Your Rec Series is obviously the latest thing. I don't think much else has changed in the time period since we've last had you to having it now. But what has changed, or what's in the future for myCOOLMAN?
So we've just launched our power range. So we've expanded on the power pack. So it was a pretty big step forward for us. We've now got solar blankets. We're about to have power stations drop as well. And then also in that, it's also inverter chargers, which is coming back to our strong ties with the manufacturing market in Australia. And then also being, all about cooling and also heavy ties leading back to manufacturing, we've also launched the myCOOLMAN aircon. So that was pretty big for us as well. So where we, took all of our cooling experience and channeled it into now we're cooling down a caravan. So there's been some changes, definitely not changes to the core range. Like that core range is where we stand the strongest and what we know the most about. But now we're expanding out into power and we'll, progress along there, and we'll expand it out into air conditioners and that'll go down its path. And, we're not stopping at chest freezers. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So
cool.
Take that with a grain of salt or take that how you want. But, we're always looking to how we can complete our range or how we can expand our range and make it a holistic approach to mobile cooling.
That's awesome. Little bit of a teaser for customers or our audience as to what to keep an eye out for myCOOLMAN in the future. Have you got any more questions for Charlie?
No, I'm all good.
Because I've been through my list. I feel like I'm much better educated on myCOOLMAN. Have you got any other? I know you said you had a heap of notes there, Charlie, at the start of the episode.
Is that your house, by the way, Charlie, behind you? Is that your actual driveway?
Yes, that was actually. So that was taken this time last year. So yeah, obviously we were heavily sponsored. We sponsored. So myCOOLMAN used to sponsor for a number of years the Caravan Association of Queensland. Now why I say that is that photo was taken the morning of the Queensland Caravan Show last year, first morning.
Right. Okay.
Walked outside and I was like, you know what, this is looking pretty good. I'm definitely gonna keep this one in the memory bank, and ended up being a pretty good photo. It was a bit of a chilly morning that morning in Queensland. It was below 20 degrees, so I definitely had the jumper on. Definitely not the temperatures it gets down to in Adelaide, that's for sure.
It's not. We're still in shorts.
Our top is 21
like 8
today.
degrees this morning, and I've still got shorts on. So
so like for us up here below 20 degrees, we're running for the jumper and everything like that. So
I know when we sit in meetings with our Brenda team up there, we'll all be sitting in t-shirts, and Dave, our store manager, will turn up in a hoodie with it all rugged up, because it's down to 20 degrees. So it's always cold. So sorry, did you have any other secrets or info in your notes there, Charlie, that you wanted to cover off on? Because I think
I'm more prepared for any curly questions that did come my way. So always wanted to make sure I had all the notes. And
is there any curly questions you want us to ask then? Just let us know what they are. We'll ask them. Stuff customers want to know.
Not really. No, I was more, just making sure that I was prepared and
cool.
It was more around the beginning as well. So like being around our director Andreas and being involved, like semi-involved in the beginning there, I took notice, but I didn't take notice, if that makes sense. I was like, at the time when the industry I was working in, I was like, yeah, cool, camping and refrigeration. How big of an industry could that really be? Like, again, coming back to this, I was in mining. Mining's a $1 billion industry. It's Australia's leading export. How big could caravanning be in Australia? And now being involved in it, caravanning and camping and all these things is so important, I'll say, especially for families. Now having a young family of my own, going out there and creating these memories is something money can't buy.
Yeah.
And again, leads into that customer experience. When you have a good experience when you go camping, you remember that. You don't always remember what you brought along with you, but you remember the time and you remember that nothing went wrong and we had a great time, a good laugh, and you carry that on with you for the rest of your life. And it almost becomes a generational thing where you do it with your kids and your kids then want to experience with their kids. So for us, when we're coming out with a product for this market, we definitely wanted to make sure that we're creating or helping create those memories. So again, like your comment about we don't go into the features very much, is like, no, we want to have a quality product that you have faith in, that you can then go out and create these memories with. and you can create them for longer.
Yeah, I love that. Selling the lifestyle, selling the benefits of it, or the lifestyle that it brings. That's really cool.
And that comes back to everyone we've partnered with over the year, with 4Drive 24/7, your 4x4, All for Adventure, all of these guys. We promote the lifestyle more than we promote the fridge, I would say. We want to share the lifestyle that you guys want to have, is basically what I'm trying to say.
Awesome. Charlie, thanks so much for your time today. That's a really good insight into myCOOLMAN. We are excited to have it back on the shelves, and I know it's certainly gained momentum straight away. As soon as they hit our shelves, we just started selling them out the door again. So obviously a good reputation in the brand. And yeah, we look forward to these new products coming out. We'll keep an eye out on those things you've hinted at too.
Looking forward to, obviously I deal a lot with the guys in Brendale here, and they're speaking very positively about it.
Yeah.
They're like, there's now the internal competition of who can sell the most by Christmas. So
yeah, right.
It's turned into a little bit of friendly banter every time I walk in now.
We better get the Keswick team on board with that as well then. Maybe customer service as well.
For sure.
All right. Thanks for joining us, Charlie. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys. It's been great to be on here. And yeah, it's always fun to reminisce about the beginning. And it's great to be back with Snows.
Awesome. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thanks, guys.
Well done. That was cool. Educated on myCOOLMAN.
Yep.
Well, that's it. Thanks for joining us again for another episode of Snowy's Camping Show. Subscribe as usual. YouTube podcast app, and jump in on the conversation on the Snowy's Camping Banter Facebook group. If you've got any questions, let us know there. We'll see if Charlie can join in. If you can't, we'll see if we can get the answers for you. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.
Catch you later.